Mary Demuth was just 5 years old when two neighborhood boys began raping her. For years, she felt dirty, unwanted, alone, and broken. That was until she found healing in a father who would never leave her. Mary joins me via Skype. Mary, welcome.
Thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
I guess the first thing I want to ask, which is what most people would ask, is 5 years old. What happened? How did this happen? Where were your parents?
Yeah, they were not around. And so I was being babysat in the afternoons after class, after kindergarten, and these neighborhood boys would contact me. They would ask the babysitter if they could take me away, and she allowed that to happen. And even after several months, when it took me a long time to tell her because I was afraid, she told me that she would tell my mom, although she never did. And those boys kept doing that for several more months until I learned how to sleep. And
Wow.
then that sleeping just kind of saved me.
Now, through all this, where was your father?
That's a great question. My mom was divorced by this time from my father. And so I would visit him every other weekend. And he didn't know anything about the abuse as well.
Wow. Now, of course, you've written a wonderful book called The Wall Around Your Heart, How Jesus Heals You When Others Hurt You. But if I can come back again to the story, I gather a point you found the boys and you wrote to them. Tell us how that happened, and yes, how that happened.
I actually haven't found the boys. I have a suspicion about who they are, and I've done a little bit of investigation, but I haven't gone all the way in trying to make sure I knew exactly who they were. So I wrote them a letter on my blog, and then I read it out loud on like something like this, like videotape. And I talked about how much that affected me as a child, and was able to finally grasp the forgiveness that I needed to hold on to for those boys who are now men somewhere in the world.
Talking about forgiveness and healing, which is really the subject of your book, The Wall Around Your Heart. Now, you tailor it after the Lord's Prayer. Tell me how that came by.
Well, actually, my husband and I had been church planters in France along with our family. And while we were there, we encountered some extreme and difficult relational stress. That's kind of a nice way to put it. And I started running into other people who were having the same kind of pain, particularly at the hands of Christian leaders. And so I realized there had to be a way to get through that pain to the other side so that we don't just end up bitter and leaving church and blaming God and all the things that tend to happen when we're really deeply hurt by somebody. And so I pitched this book to my publisher. And as I began to form the book, the Lord just reminded me of that powerful prayer, the Lord's Prayer. And that became, as you said, the framework for a way in which we can work through the pain that other people have inflicted on us.
Now, for many people, it won't be something that's obvious. And
Right.
for many of us, we'll probably have to read the book to see where the lines and the correlation is, because us praying, your kingdom come, your will be done, generally we have something in mind. But take us through the prayer and how the journey of that prayer allows me to get to a place of healing from the hurts of others.
Well, the first word of the prayer is our. And right before that, Jesus says these great words. Jesus says, pray like this, which I think if we went no farther than that, I think our lives would be changed forever. Because a lot of times when we encounter pain from somebody else, if someone else inflicts something upon us, we would rather gossip like this or stew like this or get angry like this or any of those kinds of things. But we should pray like this. That should be our first response when someone has hurt us. And then, as I said, that first word is our. It's a community. And the second word is Father, which connotes relationship. So we have this relational Father who loves us, and we can start the foundation of our lives with that in place. So that's just kind of like the beginning. And of course, as you continue through the prayer, there's, the obvious things about forgiveness that are in there, but there's other more obscure parts of the prayer where it really does have to do with relational pain. I'm not saying that the prayer is only about that, but if you look at it that way, there can be some really cool, powerful things.
Mary, our time is almost up, but I wonder, I know you travel around the world with this message. What are some of the stories of restoration and healing that you've found as you've worked with people, be it in South Africa or in Europe?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think for me, I have seen the most profound changes when I have had the privilege of praying for people. So, when I was in South Africa and I shared that very story that you mentioned, the sexual abuse story, and I had the privilege of just saying the story out loud, which gave people the permission to say their own stories and to realize they're no longer alone, I began to see people being set free because they knew they weren't alone. And then the prayer of inviting Jesus into that space of hurt has just been, it's been phenomenal.
Mary, thank you so much for joining us. And so the book again is The Wall Around Your Heart, How Jesus Heals You When Others Hurt You. And it's out now, is it?
It is very much out.
Thank you, Mary, for joining us.
It's been my pleasure.